All right, we're on air.
All right. And now we're joined by Pat Kerrane of the RotoViz Radio. How you doing tonight, Pat?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. We had a couple before we get to actual football talk. We had a couple questions. One comes in from Dan Sanio. He wants to know what is the best radio show, RotoViz radio show.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a tough question. I of course host one of those shows with Jake Rickroad. Um, we have a great episode this week. We're recording with Sean Siegel of Rotoviz, so I'll go ahead and plug that. But uh, there's a ton of shows on the channel. There's a ton of new shows actually for this year that we've just added, and we're also one note on the channel is that coming up shortly here, we're going to be able to listeners are going to be able to subscribe to each show individually. You'll still be able to subscribe to the channel and get all the shows, but there are so many at this point that we're breaking it out so you can subscribe individually as well. And I guess for my favorite, I would kind of go with one of the classics. I'm a big fan of The Numbers Game with Nick Giffen and Josh Hermsmeyer. What I love about it is those are two of the smartest guys in the industry. They're talking about complex analysis, but they do it in a way that makes it really simple to follow. And it's been a great show going back to when Kevin Cole was hosting it, back with Nick, and then back with Matt Friedman originally. So that one's been around for just about as long as any of them, and it's been consistently great.
I don't think Dan specifically was looking for a real answer. I think he was just trying to plug his own show, which is on RotoViz Radio. All
Well,
right. Well,
he got a snub out of it, I guess. So
yeah,
sorry,
exactly.
buddy.
All right. So let's talk about football. The Cincinnati Bengals running back battle is proven to be a bit more difficult than what many thought it would have been when Joe Mixon was drafted. In fact, it appears Jeremy Hill has outplayed Mixon thus far in the preseason. But I don't think any of us really think that's going to be the long term answer. Jeremy Hill, is kind of old news at this point. Joe Mixon is the young budding star. How do you view this playing out over the next few months?
Yeah, so in terms of the next few months, I think maybe it could be take a little longer for Mixon to slide into the role that people have been expecting for him. I think part of this maybe has a little bit to do with Marvin Lewis as well. Kind of been known to move rookies along a little bit slowly, but I do think that Mixon is maybe a little bit overvalued for redraft specifically. Hill is somewhat of a risk. I think probably not as much of a risk for the two down work between the 20s, but I do think there's some potential that Mixon doesn't have the goal line touches. Gio Bernard's capable in that area as well. And then Mixon also faces a threat from Bernard in the passing game. And the other thing is that the Bengals offensive line looks like it could be a problem. I think even if Mixon has the role that we expect for him, that could be a risk. Among running backs, I don't necessarily hate where he's going, kind of in that running back 15 to 18 range, but he's going in the late third, early fourth typically, and that's not really a spot where I'm looking to take running back normally because I'm going to be going zero running back a lot this year, and so he's not really someone that I'd be looking to make an exception for and take a running back in that range for. So yeah, I think he could be kind of frustrating to own, particularly early in the year. I do think, if you are making the case to take him, that probably the best case is that when he does make noise, it'll probably be closer to the fantasy playoffs. And if he does take over the role that he's certainly capable of doing, a 3-down workhorse level role, he could have a big stretch kind of at the end of the season. So I'm also not overly concerned about what's going on right now for dynasty purposes. I think Mixon, he's 21 years old. He's electric. He's a prototypical 3-down back. He was highly drafted. I think the bar is pretty low for what he's going to have to do for his dynasty stock to rise after this season. So particularly for dynasty, if this Hill news has, Mixon owners a little nervous, I would capitalize on that. I wouldn't be worried about that really at all.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said about the short term. I think that Uh, I think that it's going to be tough if everything plays out the way you said. I think it's going to be tough for his ADP to rise by this time next year. But it is nice to actually have a guest that agrees with me that it's going to not happen right away for Joe Mixon. Jesse, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think those are all good points. I mean, when you're drafting a guy like Mixon, especially in Dynasty, I guess anything you get in year one should be considered a bonus or extra. Not every rookie you draft is going to be, out of the box home run like Ezekiel Elliott was last year. So people taking, Mixon 103, 104, 105 in rookie drafts, they've got to kind of anticipate a little bit that it's going to be a slow start with Hill still there and Bernard still there. So it's going to take him a little while to get his wheels rolling. So if you're depending on him for big minutes early, then I think maybe you're going to be a little disappointed.
Jesse and I talked earlier about Dalvin Cook, but Pat, the Minnesota Vikings rookie running back Dalvin Cook looks NFL ready to say the least. How excited are you for Cook when factoring in the offensive line play in the crowded backfield?
Yeah, I'm not all that excited just because it seems like everyone else is. Like, I think he's had a great summer. The opportunity that we can expect for him, has increased with Murray being out and him kind of seizing that job, and he's looked great. But everyone else knows that. His ADP's really climbed. He was a 7th round pick back in June, according to Fantasy Football Calculators, in the 3rd round now. So, in a vacuum, I'm more excited about him than I was before. But compared to the market, I'm probably less excited about him, if anything. In Dynasty, I was checking the RotoViz Dynasty ADP app. According to the latest drafts, and these are real drafts from MFL, he's gone ahead of Mixon. He's gone ahead of Corey Davis. I'd be actually cashing out in Dynasty if I could get Davis or Mixon for him. So the hype on him, I think, is actually making me feel like he's maybe a little bit of a fade right now, if anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen. You're looking at the RotoViz app. I'm looking at the DLF ADP. I think Corey Davis is still safely ahead of Dalvin Cook. But yeah, if people are taking Dalvin Cook first overall, which it sounds like this, and did you say he was ahead of Fournette as well?
So these are in startup drafts, and in some recent startup drafts, he went ahead of just Davis and Mixon, not Fournette. Fournette was still going ahead of him pretty much every draft.
And then is McCaffrey going ahead of him as well?
McCaffrey was going ahead of him on average, but they seem to be pretty close at this point.
Yeah, Corey Davis is still my 101 in rookie drafts, or even in dynasty startups, just as far as rookies go. Jesse already commented on that, but Jesse, I'll go to you first on the next question. It's early in the preseason, but Dez Bryant looks like his old self. Why has he slipped to the end of the 2nd round in dynasty startups while his peers like Julio Jones and AJ Green, they've had a much more durable ADP? Do you think that that's fair? Do you think Dez Bryant should be down at the end of the 2nd round like that?
I think maybe his value is dipping a little bit. I don't know why this happens, but due to age. I mean, he's not that much older than an AJ Green or a Julio Jones or an Antonio Brown.
No, they're all about the same age. Those three.
Exactly. So I think there's a stigma that Dez is older for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why that thinking is prevalent. But another reason, like I said, with the Ezekiel Elliott news, I can see people maybe starting to fade that entire Dallas offense, thinking that you're going to be missing 6 or 7 games at the start of the season where that offense just might be putrid. I know he faces a tough schedule to start the year, but I mean, that's strength of schedule is really hard to predict right now where we haven't actually seen any games yet. So I don't know how much stock I put into that. I just think that, people aren't just giving him the respect he deserves. And I think that's a good buy opportunity.
Yeah, I don't disagree that maybe people think that he's older, but I don't know. Obviously that's not fair since he isn't. You have something to add?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that take. I particularly with AJ Green, because with Julio and Brown, they've shown a ceiling that Dez never has. In PPR, at least, he's never had a season of 20 or more PPR points per game. But neither is AJ Green, and So I feel like, maybe people are concerned about Dez's workload with Dak, but he had that huge playoff game, 12 targets, 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I think he can have the big games with Dak. And so I take that discount between Dez and AJ Green for sure.
I don't think Jesse was suggesting that it was a fair point, but do you agree, Pat, that people may be thinking that if Ezekiel Elliott's out, the offense might struggle? Because I don't agree. I think that I think that I would be just as likely to take Des Bryant if I knew Ezekiel Elliott's suspension would stand.
Yeah, I'm not sure if people are taking that into account or not, but if they are, then that would be something else I'd feel like I'd want to take advantage of. Like I don't really feel like the offense is going to lose a ton without Zeke. I think McFadden is, assuming he stays healthy, he'll be capable enough to, and Zeke was more of a product of the offensive line and, a terrific rookie season from Dak than really driving that offense forward. But so from that perspective, I wouldn't really be concerned about Dez because of the loss of Zeke.
All right. The theme of this next question is I don't want a draft pick in the 5th round of a dynasty startup. I will hope to move for a future rookie pick. I will try to move up into the 4th. I will try to move back into maybe the 6th or 7th. But, Pat, which player in the 5th round of dynasty drafts are you most excited about? And I'll give you just the 12 according to DLF. Dante Moncrief, Golden Tate, Jamison Crowder, Michael Crabtree, Willie Snead, Jordan Reed, Amir Abdullah, Corey Coleman, Carlos Hyde, Russell Wilson, Hunter Henry, Josh Doxson. Some of those players I definitely am excited about. I just don't know if I'm excited about them in the 5th round. I think the value of 5th rounders right now is probably similar to that value of 7th rounders. But of those 12 players, Pat, who are you most excited about in Dynasty?
Corey Coleman. He's someone that I've been targeting a lot. Yeah. And he definitely stands out here. He feels like the real gem here for me. I just loved him as a prospect. He was terrific in John Moore's Phenom Index. A lot of the other analytical measures for rookie wide receiver prospects really liked him. The Football Outsiders Playmaker score loved him. He was, of course, a first-round pick. I think just a really solid pedigree all around. And then last year, he had the 2nd most targets of any rookie wide receiver behind Michael Thomas. He was actually really efficient when Josh McCown was the quarterback. Much less efficient with RG3 and Kessler, which I guess could be bad if Kessler is the quarterback. But I think ultimately it's not like Kessler's going to be their long-term solution there. And I actually think the fact that, the quarterback situation is a concern, it's a concern for everyone. That's why he's in the 5th round, I think.
Right.
If they had a really good quarterback there, he'd be going much higher. I think the quarterback situation presents some upside. I think the Browns front office, I expect they'll find a quarterback eventually. And then with Kenny Britt coming in, I think Britt's interesting in redraft. He could steal some targets, but I don't really see him as a long-term impediment to Coleman. And so I think, if Coleman has a big season, Britt's not going to hold down his value. And it's also, I don't think Britt's going to be holding him down long-term in terms of becoming like a true kind of number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. The other thing about Coleman that I like is he's attainable. I've been able to trade for him 106 straight up in my rookie draft, back in May, I guess. But it hasn't been a ton of buzz about him to drive up his price. I feel like you could still get him for around that range. Sometimes, if you look at trade calculators, et cetera, and match these guys up, and then you can't ever get them for what Coleman, people don't seem holding on to. That's actually another reason I can.
One second, Pat. Did you get that too, Jesse, or was that just me?
No, he's breaking up a bit there on mine as well. I didn't
Okay.
know if it was coming up through on your side too.
Yeah. It was just there at the end, Pat.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that since I was able to get him for the 106 in that draft, I don't think there's a ton of buzz on him since, and so his price is probably not all that different. And with some guys, like where they're going in ADP and where that should imply their trade value, he was kind of matching up with the sixth rookie on average. Then you go to try to trade for the guy and you're not able to do it. With Coleman, it seems like people are willing to deal him. His owners aren't necessarily holding on super tightly, it seems like. So that's another reason I like him.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add there. Corey Coleman's the guy for me, too. He was my number one rookie wide receiver last year, and nothing has changed other than the emergence of Michael Thomas. So Corey Coleman's the guy for me. I'm excited about Willie Snead. I'm excited about even Russell Wilson. Even though I'm probably not taking a quarterback in the 5th round, I think I think there's worse values ahead of Russell Wilson where he's going there. But Corey Coleman's the guy for me. Jesse, do you have somebody different?
I mean, I like Coleman. I can see why you'd want to trade out of this group, though. Every single one of those guys has question marks in my eyes. So I like Coleman. I mean, I'd make that 106 for Coleman trade all day. That's fantastic value, I think, right there. What do you guys think of Josh Dodson, though, part of that group? Is he just kind of being forgotten, or is he being lumped into that Kevin White, Brashad Perriman, always injured, never going to do anything kind of group?
Yeah, he's back on the field. I like Coleman better than Josh Doctson coming into the draft, and but although Josh Doctson was my number 2 wide receiver, I had him ahead of Fuller and Treadwell, and that probably hasn't changed either.
Yeah, where are the targets for Doctson? That's the thing that concerns me. If he's going to have trouble, I think, really establishing a role this season, and then that'll be 2 years where he hasn't really seen many targets in the NFL, and I think his stock will fall. Like things will have to kind of break right for him to be drafted in the 5th next round, I think, in next year. I mean,
yeah.
And he's also not someone that you're really counting on for production this year. So he's sort of a head scratcher for me, actually, in the 5th. It just seems like you just have to really believe in Doctson to take him here. And I was kind of on the fence. I was actually fading Doctson in rookie drafts, to be honest. So
what was the reason at the time? What was the reason at the time you were fading him in rookie draft?
Just age-based production. He hadn't really done it. I really put a lot of stock into production because I feel like a lot of what John Moore has done, because I feel like that's
Doctson had an early breakout age, though.
Yeah, but in terms of the production that he put up for season, I mean, he was an older player and he didn't absolutely dominate. So that's true. He did have the breakout age, but the final season for his age was not impressive. So that was a red flag, and being down and kind of out of the range, really like the 105-ish range where you were going to be taking Doctson, or I guess it was to start, but then he had that injury. So anyway, I didn't end up with any Doctson, and I'm not really targeting him now, just given how crowded that wide receiver core is. I mean, you got 2 clear options ahead of him and then Reed. So I just don't really see that he has a big year, and I think he needs one from his dynasty value perspective.
All right, Pat, I admittedly have not listened to the past few episodes of your show. I have a backlog of podcasts I need to catch up on. But had I been listening, maybe I would know this reference, but it sounds like our pal Peter Overzet is trying to troll you. He wants to know something about a skeleton key.
I know you're not lying that you haven't listened to the past few episodes, because I wasn't on them.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete asked if I discovered the skeleton key to the 2017 season in a Vietnamese temple, and the reason he asked that is because I was on vacation in Vietnam for the last couple of weeks. So I didn't discover the skeleton key in Vietnam, but I kind of wanted to, I did want to mention maybe he's because we're co-drafting, co-owning a team in the FFPC main event. We'll be out in Vegas to do that the weekend of we'll be drafting on September 9th. That's Saturday, but
you did that last year, right? Or did you only cover it last year?
That was a great episode last year too, by the way, just to jump in there.
Yeah.
I love that episode.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to make, a lot of fun to do. So we're going back. We're actually making another episode, although it'll be slightly different because we're going to be doing it as a live episode that Thursday. So we're going to be having Kelly, some of the biggest high stakes players in the game on as guests. So if anyone listening is going to be in Vegas, so on the 7th, that's at 3 p.m. Planet Hollywood, and it's open. You can buy a ticket, even if you're not doing the FFPC. So, hit me up on Twitter for more details if you guys are interested in that. But we'll also be releasing that as a Fantasyland podcast as well. So should be fun and hopefully add another element to an already pretty cool experience drafting live in Vegas.
Well, I'm not going to say this because you're on the show. I'm going to say it because I mean it, and I tell everybody this. I think Fantasyland podcast is the most well done fantasy football podcast that there is.
Appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. All right, one last question for you. And I know Jesse's going to laugh at me as I ask this question, but I kind of went back, and this is like a range of ADP. Which of these wide receivers is most rosterable in Dynasty? Philip Dorsett, Leonte Carew, Tavon Austin, Torrey Smith, or Nelson Aguilar?
Yeah, so I think it's Aguilar right now.
It's so sad.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a few weeks ago even, but they just traded Jordan Matthews, and they're saying he's had this resurgence, and the guy was a first-round pick. He wasn't a terrible prospect, I didn't think. Wasn't like a huge target for me, but there were some things to like about his prospect profile, and we're going to be giving him targets, it looks like. I mean, he's way down after the Watkins trade. Dorsett, weren't there trade rumors about him? He's certainly not in line for a lot of targets. And
I think the quote was, "If you want him, come get him."
Yeah.
I didn't confirm that, but I know I saw that somewhere that the GM is basically just throwing him out there if somebody wants him.
You saw that because I quote tweeted and sent it to you right away.
Oh, okay. Was that legit? Was that like on RotoWorld? Was it a good source?
Yeah, no, that was a Roto blurb. Also, to jump in, we have a podcast rule here, Pat, that if Carl brings up Philip Dorsett, he has to say something nice about Matt Stafford or Eric Ebron to make up for it.
Okay, Eric Ebron is maybe getting healthy.
There you go. That's positive. That helps. I'm with you guys on this one as well. I think Aguilar is honestly one of the only guys in this group of people that I'd want on my roster at this point. The rest of them I just almost consider roster cloggers. They're guys that have some potential, but I mean, how long can you wait on them, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they're all like my guys too, is the reason why I brought it up. Like, I was probably higher on Philip Dorsett than anybody. Leonte Carew, Jesse always calls Leonte Carew my guy. I have him in one league. I did take him over Will Fuller. I fully admit that. But it was only one league. Tavon Austin, I've made excuses for a lot of years. And Torrey Smith, he used to be my guy. But I'm beginning to think that maybe he's a decent buy late in drafts. I mean, Jordan Matthews is gone. Really, all they have is Ertz, Jeffrey, and Torrey Smith to throw to, unless you're buying into Nelson Aguilar, which is fine. Sounds like we all are, but I think Torrey Smith is the other alternative there.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely. I mean, my concern with Smith is it feels doesn't have that much upside for kind of an end of the roster guy, so he feels a little roster cloggery to me. But I guess if you're more of a contending team and you're just sort of, if he emerges as the number 2 there, he could have some flex appeal, then I get that, but I'm not too keen on Smith. And Carew was a guy I've really liked Carew as a prospect, but the Dolphins are into him, so I kind of feel like he's best left on waivers unless your league's really deep at this point.
All right, Pat, I want to thank you for coming on, and I believe that is the first time we've ever heard the words roster cloggery on our podcast. Everybody, you could check out Pat on Twitter at Pat Kerrane. As always, go listen to his show on RotoViz Radio. Obviously, check out Fantasyland podcast. I really, that is, you guys just, it's really well done. What was the episode? I know it was number 5. It was the Brothers in Arms.
Brothers in Arms one. Yeah, that's the one that you got me involved in that podcast, or got me listening to it, and I agree that was a great podcast. Very well done.
Yeah, that was my favorite one as well. Yeah, it was that group of guys was just great. And if anyone listening hasn't checked out the episodes, I mean, the idea is that they kind of last for a long time. They're not, they're not super strategy heavy, or at least not strategy heavy. I mean, we're not talking about specific player outcomes for that week or that year even. So, go back and listen to the backlog. We also have a new episode coming out in, I think, like a week and a half, 2 weeks, on these guys in Ireland who started their own NFL team and play in the Irish league out there, and they're working their way up to the highest level of competition in Ireland. They're a new team, but they're trying to work their way up. Shamrock Bowl eventually is their Super Bowl over in Ireland. So that's a pretty cool episode. We got some really good audio from those guys, and so look for that in about 2 weeks.
Awesome. Yeah, and one thing I've always said about that show is I don't think you necessarily have to be super into fantasy football to listen to it and enjoy it. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. For Jesse Patterson, you can find him on Twitter at DF_Patterson. He's part of the underscore crew of the Dynasty One fantasy football group. You can find me at Carl Safchik. Check out the podcast Twitter handle at Dynasty One. That's the number 1 Dynasty One podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a good week. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for putting up with our technical issues there, Pat. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jesse, for stepping up to the plate when everything went haywire for me.
No worries. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bud.
Later.